A new global food mandate is being declared, not for our benefit, but for our complete submission.
Using the Eat Lancet platform, the most powerful institutions in the world, including Rockefeller, BlackRock, and Novo Nordisk, are pushing a new planetary health diet, which we all would be forced to eat. And this is a blueprint for our metabolic slavery built on what most of us believe to be utmost harmful for our well-being. It would systemically force us to leave and abandon the diet we thrive on and submit to what they would declare suitable and sustainable for the whole human population. They claim this will save the planet, avoiding 40,000 early deaths, but the data reveals a totally different story, one with extremely catastrophic outcomes. According to unbiased nutrition experts, this is not science. It's a sophisticated, sinister campaign bankrolled by the very industries that profit from our pain and sickness. But no matter how influential the opponents are, the truth just can't be suppressed. Despite extreme nature of threats subjected to Dr. Sean Baker and Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Anthony Chaffee now has joined the fight to expose this science fiction for what it truly is. In a very recent video appearance, he has literally smashed the whole narrative built up behind this new planetary diet. But unfortunately, this is not over by any means. The big corporations are hitting back even harder.
And today, in this exclusive video, we are going to expose what steps exactly are being taken to impose this new global diet upon us. What does the Stanford professor with most number of citations is saying about this new storm of nutritional chaos? What are the findings of the largest and most globally diverse epidemiological study in this regard, highlighted by Dr. Chaffee in his video? And finally, what crucial thing has Dr. Ken Berry come up with which changes the entire perspective about the biggest problem associated with high-fat, high-protein diet plans? There is so much to be revealed in the next few minutes. Stay with us.
The battle for the future of human health begins.
Friends, the Eat Lancet Commission have just revealed what they're calling the Planetary Health Diet. Basically, it's a global plan for how they think everyone should eat, supposedly to save the planet and to improve human health. They're claiming that if this diet were enforced worldwide, it could prevent 40,000 early deaths a day, cut food-related greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2050, and help feed the planet's projected 9.6 billion people by 2050. This honestly sounds like the start of a bad joke, but when you look at who's bankrolling it, you start to realize the scientists at Eat Lancet could not be more serious. But we'll get to that later. Okay, so this comes straight out of their own report, and the authors, many of whom proudly call themselves ethical vegans, are saying that most of our calories should come from grains. It translates to about 775 calories out of a 2,000-calorie diet, with multiple intakes of bread, rice, cereal, and repeat. Then right behind that, we have the legendary seed oils. Literally the same oils that were originally designed for engine lubricant and the same oils that are linked to inflammation and chronic disease are now a core food group. And to top it all off, a big chunk of our remaining calories comes from, and you're going to love this one, sugar. So basically over half our diet would be grains, seed oils, and sugar. And believe it or not, whole fruits and vegetables only represent a tiny portion of this diet, just over 10%. Let alone keto or carnivore followers, even most vegans I know would take issue with that. And come on, I am an ex-vegan here. Before switching to carnivore, I used to be vegan for 6 whole years. Predominantly what I ate, like 90% of my diet, were whole foods. And I was a whole foods, plant-based vegan. So most of my diet was fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, some rice, starches, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and lots of vegetables steamed. So even in a plant-based diet, how can only 10% be fresh fruits and vegetables? There is so much illogical and incoherent jumbled up in this new global diet plan, which is soon going to be enforced upon us. Let's talk about the foods they definitely do not want us to eat. Because if grains, seed oils, and sugar make up the bulk of this so-called planetary health diet, guess what's getting pushed out? Yes, it's meat, eggs, dairy, and animal fat. You get about 100 calories a day from dairy. So, hey, maybe a few sips of milk or half a slice of cheese. When it comes to eggs, you're allowed 20 calories, and that's about a third of an egg. And for meat, real meat, like beef, pork, or lamb, you get just 15 grams. That's less than half an ounce. Fish, even less. And if that's not bad enough, animal fat is practically eliminated, 0 to 5 grams a day, an abysmally small amount. And this is what we refer to as the systemic eradication of both keto and carnivore ways of eating and thriving. Plus, there is a big catch here. Once on this new planetary diet, you won't starve immediately, but your body won't have the building blocks it needs for energy, hormones, brain function, or even basic satiety. Now, here's why it sounds like a sick joke to me. Look at the countries already closest to this planetary health diet and judge for yourself. The pattern is not pretty, and it's not theoretical. It's happening now. Take, for example, India, where over 80% of adults limit meat in some way, either by avoiding certain meats or skipping it altogether. As a result, India has one of the lowest per capita meat consumption rates globally, and instead, they rely heavily on grains, legumes, and nuts, exactly what this planetary diet calls for. So, what are the results? Let's take a look. India has some of the highest rates of heart disease and diabetes. A significant portion of the population is stunted. Many suffer from mental disorders, and fertility rates are declining drastically. Okay, let's look at another one. How about Mexico's rapid shift to cheap processed calories? They're high in refined grains, high in seed oils, and definitely high in sugar. Well, guess what? Obesity and diabetes in Mexico have absolutely exploded over the last 2 decades. And in parts of Africa and East Africa, urbanization is driving similar patterns. Traditional nutrient-dense staples are now being replaced in many places by processed snacks, refined grains, and seed oils, with the same public health outcomes. Cities that have already swapped traditional diets for ultra-processed foods now have some of the highest adult metabolic disease rates in the world. That is the textbook outcome of a food system that prioritizes high-grain, low-animal foods. If countries already eating like this are drowning in metabolic disease, obesity, infertility, and nutrient deficiencies, how exactly is this diet supposed to save 40,000 lives a day? This is just crazy. The grains, the seed oils, the refined carbs are now being rebranded as planet-saving nutrition. And it's bankrolled by huge pharmaceutical companies that literally make billions every time someone takes the same drugs people end up on because of diets like this. Keep people hooked, sick, and dependent, and call it saving the planet. And here's the kicker. These are not fringe players. We're talking about the Rockefeller Foundation, Novo Nordisk, the company behind Ozempic and Wegovy, and behind the curtain, BlackRock, one of the biggest investors in fake meat. And when combined together, the profit margins of these corporations literally exceed trillions of dollars, all based on our lifelong illness and sufferings.
Exposing the propaganda. Deconstructing the planetary health fraud.
And now the stakes get even higher, with one of the most powerful voices stepping into this dirty battle. Friends, having exposed the shadowy financial backers of this new planetary health diet, a cabal of pharmaceutical giants and global investors, let's pivot to the so-called science underpinning this agenda. We must know what this unholy alliance implies. To unpack the staggering intellectual and scientific deception at play, we bring in one of the most articulate and fearless voices in the fight for our metabolic truth, Dr. Anthony Chaffee. In a very recent video posted on Steak and Butter Gal's YouTube channel, Dr. Chaffee, a man who has tirelessly opposed these anti-human plant-based global agendas, immediately cuts to the heart of the matter. He notes that the first iteration of Eat Lancet guidelines were rightfully torn to shreds by the scientific community. He is certain this new iteration will and should receive the same vitriol. To substantiate this, Chaffee doesn't just offer his own opinion. He cites the ultimate authority on academic credibility, John Ioannidis. This Stanford professor, Chaffee explains, is not just any researcher. He is the most cited researcher in the history of any academic field. His prestige, built on the sheer utility of his work, is unparalleled. And what did this titan of research say about the original Eat Lancet guidelines? He called them absolute rubbish, having nothing to do with our actual health and wellness, terming them as more science fiction than science. Dr. Chaffee couldn't agree more. He then masterfully exposes the real motive, which has nothing to do with our health and everything to do with the huge profit margins. The processed food industry, which makes trillions of dollars a year, is at its core a largely plant-based institution. It is this industry that pumps billions of dollars into nutritional research with a singular predetermined outcome: promote a plant-based diet and frighten people away from eating meat. Why? Because, as Chaffee astutely observes, they know the statistical reality. When people abandon animal foods, they don't magically start eating fresh quinoa salads. They are funneled directly into a diet of high-profit processed junk food, the Oreos, the Doritos, the ready-made meals. And this new planetary diet is recommending precisely these nutritionally deficient foods, which are loaded with anti-nutrients like phytic acid, lectins, tannins, oxalates, and protease inhibitors, compounds that actively block the absorption of whatever meager nutrients might be present. Chaffee then dismantles the common excuse that only 9% of people follow the guidelines, so the guidelines can't be the problem. He exposes this as a statistical diversion. The real data, the consumption data, shows that since the 1980s, the population has been moving exactly in the direction the guidelines dictated. We have dutifully reduced our red meat, saturated fat, and cholesterol. In their place, we have tripled our consumption of toxic seed oils and sugar, and the results have been no short of catastrophic. We have gotten profoundly fatter and sicker. With chilling precision, Dr. Chaffee lays out the biological nightmare that will result if people are forced onto this diet of grain, sugar, and seed oils. They will become diabetic. They will become metabolically dysfunctional. They will develop autoimmune disorders. He explains the mechanism: high blood sugar, or glycation, a process where sugar permanently sticks to, binds, and damages every molecule it touches. This is what destroys our arteries, leading directly to heart disease. It's what causes the #1 risk factor for kidney failure, diabetes, the #1 cause of adult-onset blindness, diabetes, the epidemic of Alzheimer's, now rightly called type 3 diabetes, and the #1 cause of amputations, diabetes. But the damage doesn't stop here. The consequence of high blood sugar is high insulin, a state of metabolic chaos. Chaffee details how this hormonal imbalance poisons our body. It blocks autophagy, the body's vital self-cleaning process, which people try to induce with fasting, but which is constantly suppressed by a high-carb diet. In women, it blocks the conversion of testosterone to estrogen, driving PCOS, the leading cause of infertility and now being called type 4 diabetes. In men, it downregulates LH receptors, crushing testosterone production. In everyone, it blocks growth hormone, stunting adolescence and accelerating aging in adults. This, Chaffee derives, is not science. It is, by definition, a dangerous propaganda with massive financial gains attached to it. And this is where his next assertion comes into play, destroying their narrative using their own findings.
Friends, before we move ahead to the most crucial mistakes, we would like to know: how has been your experience on the carnivore diet so far? Which health conditions have you managed to heal? Did you face any problems while starting or later on? And do you have any tips and suggestions for other carnivore followers? Do share in the comments. And here we have a little request. Subscribe to our channel, Carnivore Squad, helping us spread the healing message further.
Having built up a very strong case up till now, Dr. Chaffee delivers his final devastating blow, aiming not just at the Eat Lancet report, but at the rotten foundation of the entire anti-meat epidemiological machine. He exposes their primary weapon, the fraudulent methodology of the Food Frequency Questionnaire, FFQ. He rightly identifies these as inherently inaccurate, a laughable scientific tool that relies on the absurd premise that an average person can accurately recall over a span of 4 years or more the precise quantities and types of food they consumed. This is not rigorous science. It is weak, unreliable observational data based on faulty human memory, a dataset so noisy it can be manipulated to show any desired correlation. But the true cynical fraud, as Chaffee reveals, is the deliberate confounding of variables. When Eat Lancet and its ilk study the effects of red meat, they are not studying a grass-fed ribeye or a rack of lamb. They are studying a hamburger, which serves as nutritional code for the entire modern processed meal. The industrial seed oil fried fries, the high-fructose corn syrup-laden soda, and the refined flour bun. They study a pizza or a lasagna, and then, with breathtaking intellectual dishonesty, blame the nutrient-dense pepperoni or ground beef for the metabolic destruction wrought by the mountain of processed carbohydrates, sugar, and toxic oils it's served with. They are lumping ancestral, human-appropriate food in with modern metabolic poison and blaming the meat. To prove this deception, Dr. Chaffee draws a brilliant and powerful contrast, introducing the PURE study from McMaster University. This is not some small cherry-picked trial. The Prospective Urban-Rural Epidemiology Study is a massive long-term observational study whose very intent was to correct the fundamental flaws of previous nutritional research. Its investigators, led by Dr. Salim Yusuf, recognized that nutritional science was hopelessly biased, having almost exclusively studied wealthy Western populations in North America and Europe. The PURE study was designed to break this echo chamber by investigating the real drivers of health and disease across a truly diverse global population, following over 135,000 people for many years across 18 different low, middle, and high-income countries. The key findings, which completely shattered the establishment's anti-fat dogma, were published in one of the world's most prestigious medical journals in August 2017. Chaffee points out that while the PURE study also had to use the flawed FFQ method, as it's one of the only tools available for a cohort of this size, its researchers applied it honestly. They did not play the same deceptive games. Critically, their analysis separated unprocessed red meat and unprocessed dairy from the refined carbohydrates and junk foods that Eat Lancet purposefully conflates them with. When this simple, honest analysis was performed, the results were not just different, they were an explosive indictment of the entire anti-meat, low-fat crusade. The 2017 PURE study publication demonstrated on a global scale that higher intakes of total fat, including and especially animal-derived saturated fat, were actually associated with a lower risk of total mortality and a lower risk of stroke. Conversely, the very thing Eat Lancet champions, a high carbohydrate intake, was associated with a higher risk of total mortality. And what about the unprocessed red meat they vilify? It was found to be a neutral player, showing zero deleterious health effects and no association with increased cardiovascular disease or mortality. The truth, therefore, exposed by one of the largest and most globally diverse epidemiological studies ever conducted, is crystal clear. When you stop blaming meat for the metabolic sins of sugar, refined grains, and toxic seed oils, the entire anti-meat narrative collapses like a house of cards. Meat is not just not harmful, it is the most nutrient-dense, bioavailable, and ancestrally appropriate food on the planet. This single study, when read with intellectual honesty, annihilates decades of low-fat propaganda and vindicates the meat-based carnivore way of life as the true, logical, and evidence-backed path to metabolic health and human thriving.
Well, friends, the first thing they hate is the recently introduced ketogenic carnivore food pyramid, which has absolutely shifted the whole narrative away from the wishes and aspirations of the money-hungry corporations.
As outlined in a very recent review published in Nutrients Journal, the carnivore food pyramid entirely flips the conventional nutrition wisdom on its head.
It has been developed by an international coalition of low-carb practitioners determined to align dietary guidelines with modern science and our ancestral eating patterns. It stands in stark contrast to the old USDA food pyramid most of us grew up with. The original food pyramid, introduced in the 1970s, which most of us are accustomed to, infamously based our diets on 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta per day, relegating meats and fats to tiny slivers at the top. The carnivore food pyramid, by contrast, is built on the idea of our metabolic health first. It strongly emphasizes the foods that kept our ancestors healthy and lean for millennia, including fatty meats, fish, eggs, and natural animal fats. It demotes or outright eliminates the processed carbohydrates and industrial oils that only recently infiltrated the human diet. In essence, this is a food pyramid grounded in our evolution and metabolism, rather than just food industry lobbying. It's a guide meant to optimize our health, not to sell the unhealthy processed food items.
So friends, how exactly this new pyramid looks like? Let's find out. Well, the carnivore food pyramid literally flips traditional dietary guidelines on their head. Here are the layers of this new low-carb ketogenic food pyramid. Firstly, the base, its largest tier, consists of animal proteins and fats. We have ruminant meats like beef, bison, lamb, and venison as the foundation of optimal nutrition. These red meats are packed with complete protein, bioavailable iron, zinc, B vitamins, and healthy fats. Above that, the next tier features non-ruminant animal foods, including poultry, pork, and seafood like fish and shellfish. These provide variety and additional nutrients like omega-3 fats from cold water fish, while still being very low in carbohydrates. One step further up the pyramid, you'll find eggs and dairy, especially fermented, full-fat dairy like cheese or yogurt, if tolerated. Eggs are often called nature's multivitamin for their broad nutrient profile, and dairy can provide calcium and probiotics, though the pyramid advises that each individual decide if dairy works for them. At the very peak of this pyramid is a small optional tier of low-carbohydrate plant foods, primarily non-starchy vegetables and fruits. These might include avocados, olives, and berries. Importantly, this top tier is optional and minimal. Many followers of an animal-based diet may skip plant foods altogether, especially those on a strict carnivore regimen. Finally, outside of the pyramid entirely is the category of foods to avoid. This includes refined sugars, grains, and seed oils. These are the very items the old food pyramid encouraged, but the new model pointedly casts out as nutritionally unnecessary or even detrimental. Well, while we have had an idea of what the new carnivore food pyramid looks like, but the most crucial thing is yet to come. But before moving ahead into the crucial details, we would like to know, which diet plan are you following these days? Carnivore, keto, or some other diet plan? And how has been your experience so far? Do share your journey in the comments. And do hit that subscribe button, helping us spread this message further.
Now, moving to the most crucial part of this video. Because the carnivore food pyramid challenges decades of conventional dietary advice, it inevitably confronts several long-standing nutrition myths. One of the core motivations behind this publication in Nutrients was to rigorously confront these misconceptions using current clinical evidence, evolutionary insights, and metabolic science. And here are the most prominent myths systematically dismantled by this paradigm-shifting dietary model. Myth number 1. Saturated fats and red meat will clog our arteries. For decades, saturated fat has been scapegoated as the primary dietary culprit behind cardiovascular disease. However, rigorous modern analyses have failed to confirm this association. A 2020 review published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology concluded that there is no significant evidence supporting the reduction of saturated fat to improve cardiovascular outcomes or decrease mortality. In low-carb and ketogenic contexts, saturated fat metabolism operates differently. When carbohydrates are minimized, insulin levels drop and the body becomes more efficient at oxidizing fats for energy. This metabolic shift prevents fat accumulation and reduces systemic inflammation. Numerous studies show that low-carb diets, often higher in saturated fat, produce favorable changes in cardiovascular markers, lowered triglycerides, increased HDL cholesterol, reduced small dense LDL particles, which are the most atherogenic, and lowered blood pressure. Importantly, while LDL cholesterol may rise in some individuals, recent evidence suggests that this alone is not a sufficient predictor of heart disease when inflammation and insulin resistance are absent. The carnivore pyramid unapologetically reinstates red meat and saturated fat as vital and health-promoting foods, not dietary villains. Moving to myth number 2, we need fiber and plants for a healthy gut. The assumption that dietary fiber, especially from plant sources, is indispensable for gastrointestinal health is not supported by emerging evidence. Fiber is commonly believed to promote bowel regularity, but studies show that its elimination may actually improve symptoms like constipation and bloating in sensitive individuals. Carnivore-style diets, by eliminating fermentable carbohydrates and plant anti-nutrients, often reduce bloating, stabilize gut motility, and improve symptoms of GERD and IBS. A 2023 clinical trial published in Lancet Gastroenterology and Hepatology found that a low-carb diet was just as effective as a low FODMAP diet in treating IBS, suggesting that carbohydrate reduction, not fiber intake, is the more significant factor. And most crucially, myth number 3, high-protein diets harm kidney function. The fear that a high-protein diet will damage the kidneys originates from misinterpretations of renal physiology, particularly in the context of chronic kidney disease, or CKD. However, in individuals with normal kidney function, there is no evidence that increased protein intake causes harm. Recent studies demonstrate that carbohydrate restriction in diabetic patients not only improves blood sugar control, a critical factor in slowing kidney disease progression, but may also stabilize or improve renal markers. It is hyperglycemia and chronic inflammation, not protein per se, that drive most kidney complications. The carnivore pyramid, by eliminating high glycemic foods and emphasizing metabolic control, presents a nutritionally and clinically safer alternative for renal health than traditional carbohydrate-heavy diets.
And finally, we bring the most powerful evidence in our support, the new discovery made by Dr. Ken Berry, and it is no less than a game changer.
Dr. Ken Berry has uncovered something paramount, what he calls the hidden fiber of the carnivore diet.
For decades, one of the most persistent attacks on the carnivore diet by the plant-based lobby has been the fiber argument. Critics claim that without plant fiber, our gut microbiome will collapse, leading to digestive disaster, chronic inflammation, and systemic disease. This narrative has been repeated so often, with such conviction, that even many carnivore adherents have felt a nagging anxiety. Am I missing something critical by not eating fiber? Well, we all are in for a big surprise here. Dr. Ken Berry has just obliterated this concern with a discovery so profound, so elegantly simple, that it forces us to completely rethink what we thought we knew about gut health. The conventional wisdom goes like this: dietary fiber acts as a prebiotic, fermented by gut bacteria to produce short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate. Butyrate is the primary fuel for colonocytes, the cells lining your colon, and it has powerful anti-inflammatory effects throughout the body. Therefore, the logic goes, without fiber, you cannot produce butyrate, and without butyrate, your gut health will deteriorate. The conclusion seems inescapable. No fiber, no healthy gut. But here's the problem with that narrative. It is demonstrably false. There is a massive, growing community of individuals thriving on carnivore diets, reporting not just stable gut health, but dramatic improvements in digestive function, resolution of inflammatory bowel diseases, elimination of bloating and constipation, and reversal of autoimmune conditions. These are not isolated anecdotes. These are consistent, reproducible outcomes across tens of thousands of people. Their success in the complete absence of plant fiber demands an explanation, and Dr. Ken Berry has provided it. Well, the answer lies in what Dr. Berry calls the hidden fiber of the carnivore diet: collagen peptides. Yes, you heard that right, collagen peptides. Animal-based foods, particularly those rich in connective tissues, skin, bones, tendons, cartilage, are loaded with collagen, a structural protein that is the most abundant protein in the animal kingdom. When we consume these foods, the collagen is broken down during digestion into highly bioavailable collagen peptides. These peptides are composed of a unique blend of amino acids, primarily glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, which are rare or absent in muscle meat and virtually non-existent in plant foods. And here's where the real magic happens. These collagen peptides are fermented by gut bacteria in exactly the same way that plant fiber is fermented. The bacteria break down the peptides and produce short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate, acetate, and propionate. In other words, collagen peptides serve as a prebiotic fuel for the gut microbiome, fulfilling the exact role that fiber is supposed to play.
Furthermore, it is incredible to know that the scientific evidence supporting this is remarkable.
Studies have shown that a collagen-rich diet actively promotes the growth of beneficial bacterial species, particularly Bacteroides and Faecalibacterium, which are two of the most important genera associated with a healthy, resilient gut microbiome. These bacteria thrive on collagen peptides, multiplying and dominating the gut ecosystem in ways that create a robust, balanced microbial community. At the same time, collagen appears to create an environment that is hostile to pathogenic bacteria. The fermentation of collagen peptides produces metabolites that suppress the growth of harmful strains, helping to prevent dysbiosis, the imbalance of gut bacteria that underlies so many chronic diseases. This is not just about feeding the good bacteria, it is about actively crowding out the bad. But the crazy thing here is that the benefits go even further. Collagen peptides contribute directly to the integrity of our gut barrier itself. The amino acids in collagen, particularly glycine and proline, are essential building blocks for the tight junctions between our intestinal cells. These tight junctions act as gatekeepers, controlling what passes from our gut lumen into our bloodstream. When these junctions are compromised, which is a condition known as leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability, the undigested food particles, bacterial toxins, and inflammatory molecules can enter our bloodstream, triggering immune responses and systemic inflammation. Collagen peptides strengthen these tight junctions, effectively sealing the gut barrier and preventing leaky gut. This is one of the reasons why so many people with inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and other gut-related autoimmune conditions experience dramatic improvement on carnivore diets. The collagen is not just feeding their microbiome, it is rebuilding their gut lining from the inside out. Surprising as it may sound, the anti-inflammatory effects of collagen are equally profound. For individuals battling chronic gut inflammation, the transition to a collagen-rich carnivore-style diet often results in rapid and sustained reductions in inflammatory markers. The gut lining, which may have been inflamed and damaged for years or even decades, begins to heal. Symptoms like cramping, diarrhea, bleeding, and pain diminish or disappear entirely. This is not just symptom management, it is healing at the root level. And here's the beautiful irony. The very foods that the establishment has told us to avoid, fatty cuts of meat, skin on chicken, bone broth, slow-cooked shanks and oxtails, are the foods richest in the hidden fiber that our gut microbiome desperately needs. We have been told to fear these foods, to trim the fat, to discard the skin, to avoid the connective tissues. In doing so, we have been playing in the hands of the plant-based big food lobby, depriving ourselves of one of the most powerful gut-healing nutrients available. We are eager to share the startling details related to Dr. Sean Baker's arrest.
You're advocating because I'm not willing to change my position. I should be jailed.
You should be in jail, and I will be the reason for that being illegal. Speciesism has to end. It's just like racism towards animals. Not being vegan is not okay, and Sean Baker is an animal user.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
But let's just answer one important question before that. How do we harness the hidden fiber in the carnivore diet? How do we ensure we are getting enough collagen peptides to nourish our gut microbiome? It may sound unreal, but the beauty of this discovery is that it requires no supplements, no pills, no powders. Nature has already provided everything we need. We simply have to eat the foods humans have been eating for hundreds of thousands of years. Let's have a look. Not many of us know this. Bone broth is perhaps the most concentrated and easily absorbed source of collagen. Slow simmered for hours, the bones and connective tissues release their collagen into the liquid, creating a nutrient-dense elixir that has been revered across cultures for millennia. A cup of bone broth daily can provide a substantial dose of collagen peptides, vastly supporting our gut health, joint health, skin health, and overall vitality. Slow-cooked cuts of meat are another gold mine. Beef shank, oxtail, short ribs, lamb shanks, pork hocks. These tougher, collagen-rich cuts transform into tender, gelatinous delicacies when cooked low and slow. The collagen breaks down into gelatin, which is highly digestible and maximizes the release of peptides. These are not inferior cuts, they are nutritional powerhouses. Chicken skin, whether baked, broiled, grilled, or air-fried until crispy, is another delicious source. Fish skin, particularly from fatty fish like salmon or sardines, is equally beneficial. Organ meats, especially those with connective tissue like heart and tongue, provide collagen along with a host of other nutrients. Even the thin membrane inside an eggshell, easily accessible when eating a soft-boiled egg, is pure, concentrated collagen. But friends, there is a problem we have on our hands here. As powerful as this discovery is, it also represents a huge looming threat. A threat to the fiber supplement industry, a threat to the probiotic industry, a threat to the pharmaceutical companies selling meds for IBD and gut-related autoimmune conditions. Because if people discover they can heal their guts by eating bone broth and ribeye, they will no longer need the expensive pills, the synthetic powders, or the prescriptions.
So friends, here we are. This is by far the most crucial development related to the health and wellness of us all. What is your opinion about the new global diet? And how has been your experience on carnivore diet? Do share your journey in the comments. Press the like button if you found this video helpful, and share it with your friends and loved ones as well. Subscribe to our channel, helping us spread the message further. And there are some crazy new updates, which are even more crucial. Click the video showing up on the screen right now. See you there.